I'm Ann Crimmins, and I'm glad you could join us tonight. Our speaker will be Rabbi Areyah Kaltmann, and Roger will be introducing him in just a few moments. I have a couple of comments I'd like to start with. First, I'd like to thank Hassan Jomert for his technological assistance. As always, he's very generous with his time and expertise. I'd like to thank Kayla Bosky for all she does for WIN, but also for handling all the publicity and contact with our audience for sharing our stories. And I'd like to thank Roger Bloker for making the arrangements with Rabbi Kaltmann for tonight's program. Let me just very quickly review our process here. First, we do ask that you turn on not just your microphone, but also your camera, as that helps reduce some of the background noise. You'll still be able to hear and see the program. The presentation will be about 45 to 50 minutes, followed by a question and answer period. And again, we do use the chat feature. You can submit those questions in writing anytime. Rabbi Kaltmann is also open to fielding questions live from the audience at the end of his formal presentation. So if you'd like to ask a question, just be sure to turn on your camera and your microphone, and you'll be all set. A quick word about our next program, July 27th. That's 4 weeks from tonight. Our speaker will be Semiha Topol, who is a visiting assistant professor at William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia. And she will share her story of immigration from Turkey, as well as her experiences as a Muslim woman teaching religion to college and university students. So we look forward to that and hope you can join us on July 27th. There will be no sharing our stories in August, as is our usual practice, because that's such a busy month. So we'll resume in September. Now I'd like to turn the microphone over to Roger, who will introduce Rabbi Kaltmann.
Thank you, Ann. I met Rabbi Kaltmann about 20 years ago at a very unconventional wedding of my best friend, but that's its own story. I see Rabbi Kaltmann regularly at 6:30 in the morning at a lake by Hoover Reservoir for open water swimming. So in addition to our shared appreciation for water, I truly appreciate Rabbi Kaltmann's heart and his smile. There's a joy that I think you will see in his face this evening and hear in his voice tonight as he shares a little bit about his approach, the coming to understand an invisible God, and he may talk a little bit about his mission and his involvement with an organization called Lifetown. So, Rabbi, take it over.
Thank you, Roger. I am humbled to know you, and I feel it is a tremendous honor to call you a friend. And I'm a rabbi, and the reason why I smile is because I believe that every single moment God is recreating the world, and we have a new chance and a new opportunity. My father was a Holocaust survivor. He was in 7 concentration camps. He was the only one who survived in his family. And I appreciate that every single moment that I'm alive is a gift, is a blessing. Now, my father, he was a happy man. Now, you'd ask, why would he be happy? You know, he went through so much hatred and unfortunately so much pain and agony. At the age of 17, his name was Joseph. And if you read in the Torah and the Bible, the story of Joseph, he was 17 years old when he was cast, when he was thrown into a pit. And my dad, his name was Joseph, he was 17 years old when he came out of a pit, an inferno, where his mother his father, his brother, and his sister, his grandmother, his uncles, and his nieces, his uncles and his aunts were ripped away from him. So what is there to celebrate? What is there to be happy about? And the answer is, although this world we don't understand, and we quite frankly we can't understand, because there are three Hebrew words which really sum up the reality of this world. Ilo yodaitiv hayisiv, which means if I would know God, I would be God. We are finite, we are mortal, we only have so much understanding, we can only fathom what our finite, limited mind allows us to. But what we do know is that we are never, ever alone. And every single moment in our existence is an opportunity to make a difference. And my dad knew that, true, sometimes life is difficult, painful. Sometimes we don't understand the ways of God. But what we do know is that we are now alive and we have to live life to the fullest. And we have to squeeze as much as we can out of every single moment. So my dad didn't just live life for himself. He lived life for his murdered father, his murdered mother, his murdered brother, his murdered sister, and for all of his family. And, you know, there was a rabbi 250 years ago. His name was the Baal Shem Tov. He was the founder of the Hasidic movement. And the Baal Shem Tov, he taught Hashgacha Pratis, which means divine providence. He told his students that everything that happens, everything that occurs in this world happens for a reason. There is nothing by chance. The Baal Shem Tov said that if a leaf fell off a tree, it didn't just fall off a tree. There's a specific reason why this leaf fell from that tree and fell on top of an ant or an animal beneath it. Nothing just happens. God is active in creation. So one day the Baal Shem Tov was in the forest, went over to this little child and he said, "Why are you crying?" And the child said, "I'm playing hide and seek and I'm hiding." And the Baal Shem Tov said, "So why are you crying?" And the little boy said, "Because my friends have given up looking for me and I'm hiding and no one's looking for me." The Baal Shem Tov took out a candy and gave it to the little child. And he had a smile and he went away. The Baal Shem Tov's disciples, his followers, asked him, "Master, please explain to me. You say that everything that happens in the world happens for a reason, for a purpose. What lesson could we possibly have from this story? Here you have a child playing a juvenile, a childish game, and you tell me that there's a reason, there's a purpose, something I could derive from this story?" And the Baal Shem Tov says, "Open up your heart. This isn't just a story. This is the meaning of creation." What? The little kid's crying and he's playing hide and seek, and this is the mystery of creation? How could that possibly be? And the Baal Shem Tov said, my brothers, open your heart, listen to the words, to the cry of the child. It's not just that child speaking, it's God Almighty. God created the world, and in the world, he hid himself. And God is waiting for us to find him, to reveal God in this finite world. But alas, so many people have given up looking for God. I don't see God. I don't perceive the depths of creation. And some people, sadly, tragically, painfully, have given up looking for God. And God is crying. God is looking for, is waiting for us to look and to find him in creation. But sadly, painfully, some of us say, we don't see God. We can't fathom the ways of an infinite creator. Painfully, sadly, tragically, God is crying because God is waiting for us to find him. Where do we find God? So we believe that God gave us a Torah. God gave us, when you buy a product that comes with a guide, a user's manual. You don't just buy a computer, hey, there's a computer, and work it out yourself. No, we don't have to work it out ourselves. God gave us a Torah. God gave us mitzvot, commandments. God gave us a guide, how to find him, how to cleave, how a finite, limited human being can create a relationship with an infinite God, which is hidden within the world. And God is waiting. God wants each and every one of us not to give up looking, but to keep on looking, probing deeper, trying to understand, to fathom the ways of the Creator, to make this world holy. So, my friends, let me tell you, we believe, according to our tradition, that Hebrew isn't just a language. Hebrew, just like chemistry, has an intrinsic explanation and relates the essence of the world it is labeled with. It's not a language of consensus, which means if we want to call a table a chair and a chair and a table, big deal. As long as everyone agrees to call it what we label it. No. Hebrew, like chemistry, H2O, is very deliberate. Hebrew, and this isn't just a Jewish idea. If you look at Steinbeck, John Steinbeck, East of Eden, the whole book is based on a Hebrew translation. Every Hebrew word has a meaning, an explanation. The Hebrew word for world is olam. Olam. And guess what? The word olam comes from the source lahalim, to conceal. God conceals God's essence in the world. There is no coincidence that the word for world and the word for concealment is the same. There's a word for nature in Hebrew. It's called teva. Teva. You heard of the pharmaceutical teva? It's out of Israel. That means nature. Guess what? The word teva comes from the Hebrew word lahatbia, which means to sink. Why? Because when something is immersed in water, it sinks in the water. It appears as if it's not really there, but it is there. It's submerged in water. God is in the world, but the problem is, sadly, painfully, that guess what? Sometimes we give up looking. And this is not a judgment on anyone else. I'm talking about myself. There are a lot of distractions. There are a lot of reasons why we would give up looking. It doesn't make sense. It's just not fair. But my father's example of refusing to be a victim, refusing to justify a world where you aimlessly grope from one place to another, not understanding, complaining, being bitter about the darkness which envelops us. Rather, it is our mission, it is our mandate to look for God, to persevere. And sometimes we don't see God. God is hiding. He is hiding. But that doesn't mean he's not there. There's so much to say about this, and time is limited, time is short. You know, they tell a story about a little Jewish child in the former Soviet Union. And this little child was in a classroom where they were being preached to that God doesn't exist. And in the 1970s, the teacher comes into the classroom. The teacher says, "Class, do you see the table?" And the class says, "Yes, we see the table." So the teacher says, "There is a table." "Class, do you see the chair?" And the class says, "Yes, we see the chair." So the teacher says, "There is a chair." "Class, do you see God?" The class says, "No, we don't see God." So the teacher says, "There is no God." A little Jewish boy stands up. He's only 9 years old, and he says, "Class, do you see the table?" And the class says, "Yes, we see the table." So Chaim, this little Jew, 9-year-old boy, says, "Hey, class, there's a table." "Class, do you see the chair?" Class says, "Yes, we see the chair." So Chaim says, "There's a chair." "Class, do you see God?" No, pardon me. Chaim says, "Class, do you see the teacher's brain?" And the class says, "No." So Chaim says, "The teacher has no brain." Just because you can't see something, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. You don't see electricity. You don't see a personality. There are things you can't see, but you know they're there. My friends, this is our mission. God took the world and he concealed himself in the world. He took spirituality and he created a physical world. We have to complete the equation. We have to take the physical world and elevate it and make it holy and return it to spirituality. So people ask me, "Rabbi, what do you do?" So I say, "Well, I am a dog greeter." "What? A dog greeter?" "Why'd you go to rabbi school to be a dog greeter?" I say, "Yeah, I'm a dog greeter." "What are you talking about?" And I say, well, every day during the school year, I open the door, and between 50 and 75 kids with disabilities come in to our building. It's called Lifetown. It's a simulated village that helps children with disabilities. And I greet them. Do you know, when we open that door to our kids, we're not just opening a door, we're opening a world of new opportunities. Too many of our children feel deprived, feel locked out of a world which they have been told again and again, no, you can't do this. No, you are not a typical normal child, quote unquote. No, you can't be used to financial literacy. You don't know how to interview for a job. No, no, no. We believe that our mission is to reveal opportunity, a new world to our children with disabilities. And thousands of kids keep on coming back every year. Between 50 and 75 kids a day from different, primarily Columbus City School kids come. And they come into our Chabad house, Lifetown, and they come not knowing that they can do things, not knowing that the world which once they felt shut out of, they are finally able to appreciate, to do, to function as they continue their journey towards independence. And it's called Lifetown. If you go to lifetowncolumbus.org, you'll see what we're all about. There are 3 of these cities in the world. And you'd ask, well, what's that got to do with being a rabbi? That's a rabbi, you got to study Torah, you got to do Jewish ritual. What's spiritual about that? So, my friends, I'm going to tell you some Kabbalah, some Jewish mysticism. Now, everyone knows the Star of David. Yeah, you got a triangle going up and you got a triangle going down. What's the big deal? My friends, that Star of David is Judaism, spiritually in a nutshell. What are you talking about? Please let me explain. You have one extreme, a triangle going up, and you have another extreme, a triangle going down. Judaism says extremes don't work. You have to take both extremes and join them together. You have to take both extremes and fuse them as one. What am I talking about? Okay, let me tell you, please. You have a triangle which on the bottom, it has its 2 sides joining together on top. It's going up. You know what that represents? The quest for spirituality. We are in a physical world where God is hidden. We are in a world where we can't see God. So we look, we yearn, we search for the spiritual. Terrific. But if all you do is a quest for spirituality, then why would God create this world? Wouldn't it be better off staying in heaven? Why do we go through the darkness, the concealment, as we explained, of the world where God is hidden? God is concealed. Why bother with our existence? Heaven's the ultimate. God revealed, exposed, that's where it's at. That's one extreme. the quest for spirituality, the triangle which goes up. Then you have a triangle inverted, which goes down. What is that? That is the pursuit of the physical. You know, Brian Epstein was the manager of the Beatles. And before Brian Epstein did suicide, he wrote a goodbye letter to the world. He was incredibly successful. He was fabulously rich, but he wrote a goodbye letter to the world. He wrote, I have everything, but I have nothing. That's what he wrote. Physicality, materialism alone cannot quench our spirits. Physicality, materialism alone will not make us happy, will not give us a meaningful life. We need the spiritual. But if you just have the spiritual, that's also not a solution. If you just have the spiritual, we could have stayed in heaven. Who needs this world? Comes along Judaism and says, we need physicality. We need the world, but our mission is to take the physical world and elevate it and make it divine, make it spiritual. You know, for a child with disabilities, the world is very concealed. The world doesn't have God revealed in it. But when I see 20 beautiful human beings who volunteer every single day, who man this simulated village, who go out of their way to heal the broken heart of kids which feel rejected, and now they finally can do things. And now, although it's so painfully, seemingly dark, there's so much love. There's so much light. My friends, guess what? God took spirituality, created this physical world, and this physical world, God is hidden. But these wonderful, these beautiful 20 precious souls take a world of concealment, a world where God is hidden, and they reveal God, not just to themselves, but to a child who felt shut out of the world, unable to reach their full potential. And now they're included. It's not just about building walls. It's about building bridges. Yeah, it's easy to build a bridge, but you got to cross over the bridge. Every physical human being who is in pain, physical pain, that is my spiritual mandate. To find God by revealing goodness, kindness in the world that God has given us. My friends, this is our mission. To fuse the physical and the spiritual together. The quest for spirituality is very important. But guess what? In the heavens above, they can't do as great deeds as us, mortal, finite, seemingly puny man. Because even though we are finite, even though we have a God which is hidden from us, but when we break down the concealment, when we reach out with love, when we embrace someone in need, we take an invisible God and we make God real. That's why I'm a door opener. Because When we open that door to Lifetown, we are not just letting kids inside a building. We are opening a world which they were once shut out of. My friends, this is holy. This is holy because this is what God writes in the Torah. We are our brother's keepers. We are responsible for each other. And although someone else's problem is their problem, no, that's only if you concentrate on the body. But if you concentrate on the soul, we are one soul. The Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement, he believed in what John Steinbeck borrowed the term of a soul. We, and this is based on the Baal Shem Tov was approximately 250 years ago, but this is based on Jewish spirituality, the neshama, the soul, which envelops all of us. We have a mission, we have a purpose. And our mission is to reveal God in a concealed world. You know, people ask me, what is greater, an angel or a human being? And I don't have to flinch to give the answer. You know, in a game of chess, you have chess, okay? You have chess. A pawn is a little piece, and you move it slowly, and then you have a rook, you have a castle. You know what's greater? That little piece. Because when that little piece finishes the board, it can become anything it wants. It can become a queen. You can have someone on a great spiritual level, a castle, a rook, a horse. They can jump and they can do incredible spiritual feats. But my friends, they are programmed to do that. For Michael Jordan, for LeBron James, to jump through the air and miraculously dunk the basketball, big deal. But you want to know something? For that little child in his wheelchair to throw the ball with all his energy, to muster up all his strength and to throw that basketball and for the basketball to go in the hoop. Yes, that is far greater, far superior than any great basketball star. Because that little child has taken his disability, has taken his limitations or her limitations, and has overcome that. That is what this world is all about. Although we are physical, although we are limited, although the world seems so daunting and challenging, we can, in our physical and sometimes difficult, seemingly painful reality, when we do a good deed that is far superior than an angel, than even a queen, which can dash from one side of the chessboard to the other. You know, there was a person, a little child, and the little child was having so much of a painful time, so much of a difficult time in life. And the child went to see a great rabbi. His name was the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson. He passed away 27 years ago. And the child went to the Rebbe, and the child said, Rabbi, life is so difficult. I hate living. I hate my life. I hate this world. I've had enough. And the Rebbe said, what do you enjoy? There has to be something you enjoy. And the child said, I enjoy drawing. That's the only thing I like. And the Rebbe asked this child, let me ask you a question. Why is it if you draw something, if you take a blank canvas and you create a masterpiece, you create a portrait, it sells for a lot more money. It is far more valuable than if you take a photograph, if you take a picture with a camera. Why? The picture with the camera is much, much more exact. Why is it that when you draw a portrait, the Mona Lisa, great portraits, they're valuable. But a camera picture is much more exact. Why? And the child had no answer. And the Rebbe said, let me tell you, for a camera to take a picture, that's no great feat. But for a human being to overcome their limitations, for a human being to draw something on that blank canvas, that is something special. You want to find God, you don't need to look in the heavens. You don't have to look in the spiritual realms. Look in this physical world. Reveal God within your limitations. Take that blank canvas and create a masterpiece. My friends, this is the lesson. This is our challenge. This is our purpose. And this is our mission. Yes, there's an invisible God. But this world is the ultimate world. There are spiritual realms. Sure, there are heavens above where God is revealed, but big deal. It doesn't mean anything to be holy when God is revealed. In this physical world where God is concealed, where sometimes life doesn't make sense, when sometimes I could tell you life isn't fair, when I can tell you that the darkness that covers over our hearts is too painful. Guess what? In that darkness, in that world of concealment, we keep on looking. And guess what? We will find our God in our physical existence. For we are one. Yeah, I could go on and on, but I might as well allow for questions. This is a Hasidic concept of finding God, an invisible God, in a finite, concealed world. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and I could go on and on for a long time because I'm giving you a little taste of Hasidic philosophy and the mission, the purpose that we have in this world is to find and reveal God in a concealed space in this physical, seemingly very limited world. Does anyone have any questions?
Okay, we have one question on chat. Where would the divine creator have been found during the Holocaust?
Yeah.
As,
So
and others were taken to the gas chambers.
yeah, that's a good question. So like I say, because it doesn't make sense, that's why we believe, and I'll tell you, let me explain that. Okay, let me explain that. So just to because I'm on my phone, so how do you find, what was the question? Just could you say the question again?
Where would the divine creator have been found during the Holocaust as Jews and others were taken to the gas chambers?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great question. And like I say, I don't have an answer to that. But I can tell you where God was found. God was found in my grandparents who kept on believing. My father comes from Bratislava. The capital of Slovakia, and that what used to be Czechoslovakia. And my grandfather was a successful businessman, and he was a scholar. He was a scholar. He studied Talmud. He was a very astute. He was a brilliant man. He established textile factories throughout Europe. That was my grandfather, my father's father, and they were in hiding. And they found out that there was an orphan boy. His name was Simcha Templar. And this boy, Simcha Templar, his parents were killed, and he was orphaned, and he was left alone. And they came out of hiding, my grandfather, to take this boy, Simcha Templar, into hiding with them. Until, unfortunately, the person who was hiding my father and his family and this boy, Simcha Templar, turned them into the SS. So this Simcha Templar went to Buchenwald concentration camp with my dad, and he survived, and my dad survived. They were the only two survivors from that home which were hiding. And I would tell you that you'd find a divine, infinite God in acts of kindness that my grandfather did, that he left his place, his safe hold, and he went to find that orphan child who had no one to care for him. So listen, like I started off saying, there are three Hebrew words. If I would know God, I would be God. But I can tell you this, that despite the darkness, despite the pain, we go on believing. That's who we are. And we find God in the most concealment. Those Jews, I'm only qualified to speak. I'm a rabbi, we believe, are you there? Yeah. I'm a rabbi, and we believe that all people have a purpose and a mission. Jewish people and non-Jewish people, we don't proselytize because we say every person has a mission, has a purpose. And there are 7 Noahide laws, 7 laws of which humanity needs to keep: not to murder, not to steal, not to commit adultery, not to be cruel to animals, not to curse God, not to worship idols, and to establish courts of justice. And we believe that if the world keeps those 7 Noahide laws, we reveal God in the world, and we create a place where God can function and God can be revealed together. Everyone has a purpose. Everyone has a mission. And we just have to do what we can to make this world holy, despite the darkness. Listen, you think it breaks my heart, when you see kids today. We had summer school. We're not open every day in the summer. Some days, Columbus City School has summer school, job training, so they come to us. Everyone came with masks today, and to see the joy and to see the thrill of our kids, to see the joy and to see the thrill of our kids as they're embraced, as they cared for. For me, that's God. That's real. That's despite. Listen, they have a problem. It doesn't have to be. The Holocaust is just a numbers game. I hate to say that, but if a little kid was run over by a car, it's the same philosophical question as if 6 million Jews were murdered. It's the same concept, but just it's a bigger number. The same question applies. And the same question applies is, why would God create someone with a disability which is so debilitating, which is so locking them out of a whole world? And we don't know. But what we do know is that we're here to make a difference. And we're here to take the darkness and to reveal God in the darkness. That's our mission. And like I started off saying, my dad's my hero. And my dad was a very happy man. When he was awake, when he went to sleep every night, he woke up in the middle of the night with nightmares. But when he was awake, he was a happy man. He was a kind man because he appreciated the light. He appreciated the life that he was given. And he knew that he was living on borrowed time. So anyway, I hope that helps. What was the second question, please?
The second question is, and I think this relates to what you were just talking about. Do you think there's too much hero worship? She asked with athletes today, or perhaps even more generally, trying to find meaning in heroes.
Okay, so that's a great question. Yeah, I do think there is. Just because a person knows how to throw a basketball, and just because a person knows how to throw a football, that doesn't mean that what they say is gospel is 100% correct. Now, if someone is able to take their God-given talents and be an example and be caring and be loving and go out of their way to help, and then that's a great opportunity. Then they could show that hey, you can be caring and loving and sensitive, and even though you have fame, but it's not just about, let me tell you, I'll give you an example of that. We had on June the 4th, the great Golden Bear, Jack Nicklaus. He came to our luncheon. He left the memorial tournament. You know what that is? That's like a chief rabbi leaving Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar, leaving the synagogue. He left his memorial tournament, and he came to help kids with disabilities. He started crying when he spoke about children in his life and how kids suffer, and how he's and his wife Barbara committed to making a difference. He's using his talents to be sensitive and to inspire others to make a difference for children. That's the greatest thing possible. And he told the person who was Jared Smoley from Channel 4, he said, I don't want to talk about golf. I want to talk about kids. I want to talk about making a difference for children. That's greatness. That's despite the world, unfortunately, could fixate legend, golf, hole-in-one. He chooses he has the microphone because he is the world's greatest golfer. And what does he decide to speak on? Not about his feats, his successes, his victories, but to highlight the plight of children in need. That's greatness. That's a hero. And the Talmud says, actually, Mishnah says, who is great? You know what it says, who is great? Someone who conquers their temper, someone who conquers their inclinations. Angels are very, very spiritual. Angels see God very vividly. But we believe that a finite, limited human being who chooses to do good acts of kindness, they are much, much greater than the spiritual angels above. I hope that answers the question. I can't hear you. Sorry.
Sorry. I have a question. It brings me back to your father. You said, my understanding is that you are from Australia, that you emigrated
Yes.
from Australia. And was it your father then, after the war, who emigrated to Australia?
Yeah. My dad was a Holocaust survivor. He was the only one in the family who survived. He went back to Bratislava, and he weighed 66 pounds. He was liberated on April the 11th from Halberstadt concentration camp. It was a sub-camp of Buchenwald. And he went back after he had beriberi, that's some vitamin deficiency, malnutrition. His leg was cut up. His whole story, they were supposed to go on a march. He took a stone. He was very, my dad was street smart. He took a stone and he cut open his foot and he put dirt inside, and his foot was inflamed. They couldn't. They left him on the straw. They left him on the straw to die, and the Americans, the Eighth Armament, they liberated him, and they nursed him back to health. And from there, he went back to Bratislava. Everyone in his family was murdered. His brother actually survived in another camp. And his brother, no one meant anything bad, but they gave his brother a candy bar, and that exploded his stomach. And he ended up dying. And he was the only survivor. And then he went to Palestine, to Israel, and he fought in the Israeli army, the IDF. And in the 1950s, in the early 1950s, he left and he went to Australia because there was a very high percentage of Holocaust survivors in Melbourne and Sydney, Australia, because they wanted to run away from the world and be left alone. And I'm Australian. I'm an Aussie boy. And I don't sound it or look it, but I'm a dinky die Aussie. And Roger, who introduced me, my dear friend, our mutual friend Steve, he met my dad many, many years ago. And, Steve and my dad always had very nice things to say about Steve, and Steve enjoyed my father. And, I'm Australian. But then I had to become a rabbi. And in 1988, I came to Brooklyn, New York. And from there, I went back on rabbinical for 2 years. I'm from Melbourne. I went back to Sydney. And I came back in 1990. I got married in 91. In 91, I came to Columbus and with my wife. And we have been in Columbus for 30 years. And I love Columbus. Columbus is a great city. I'm sorry. I can't hear you. I can't hear. Don't worry, it's okay.
Do we have audience members who would like to ask a question of Rabbi Kaltmann? If so, just turn on your mic and ask. I have another question. You are Orthodox in your orientation to Judaism.
Yes.
And when you think of other orientations to Judaism, Reform, for example, conservative, how would you describe the differences in those different branches of your faith in terms of the quest that you have outlined for us of finding God in this world?
Yeah, I have enough problems just being an Orthodox rabbi. so I'll tell you, we study. So I know the question you want to know is who wins swimming in the lake, me or Roger, and Roger destroys. so Roger's a much, much superior swimmer. He's an athlete. And I'm just, but that's at 6:30 in the morning. I wake up every morning, 5 o'clock. This morning I woke up 2:30. It varies. And I had stuff to do, a lot to do today, and I had to wake up early. And I study. When I wake up in the middle of the night, or I have a chavrusa, I have a study partner every morning at 5:30 in the morning. I'm studying. And, being an Orthodox rabbi, the word Orthodox, I just always use the word Jewish. I'm doing what my ancestors did. And the other branches, different strokes for different folks. But I always like to emphasize what we have in common. I just keep the Judaism that my ancestors did. And of course, things have changed. We have a modern world, thank God. But, we just take the Torah and we apply it. We apply it to the world in which we live. So it's like a computer program. The data can change, but the program stays the same. So me, myself, I have a flavor of Judaism, Chabad. Wherever you go in the world, there are two things, Coca-Cola and Chabad, literally. And there's over 4,000 outposts throughout the world. Wherever you go, there's a Chabad house. And we help people. I feel very lucky that I'm in Columbus. I have friends. My classmate is the rabbi in Bangkok, in Thailand. I have another classmate. All these godforsaken places in the world, because we believe someone else's physical problem is our spiritual problem. None of the 2,500 kids, well, very few, I should say, that I know are Jewish. They're all primarily, kids with disabilities, mostly from Columbus City schools, and that's, we have the world, and their physical problem is my spiritual concern, and I think if we, as the world, emphasize what we have in common, and we build upon that, then we literally reveal God in as we explained, a very concealed world, in a world which sadly too many times the darkness envelops us, and too many times we can't see God. But trust me, when you see kids at Lifetown or wherever a person goes, when you see kids and the smile of a kid who can do something now which they couldn't do before, that's finding God, revealing God in a very physical place, in a very seemingly dauntingly hopeless world, and that's the ultimate. That's why we're in this world, and yeah. But I hope I somewhat answered your question.
Thank you. Does any?
Yeah,
Go
if there aren't any other questions, I was just going to thank Rabbi Kaltmann and also say that this week I'm in Orlando, and that's where our two grandchildren are. And this week they're my personal trainers, to your point. And my 2-year-old daughter, our granddaughter, was showing me how to clean up after a dinner. We stood over the sink and rinsed all the dishes. And then she made a smoothie for me the next night. So I'm learning every day from a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old.
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
Sure. Well, unfortunately, as we know, there has been some rise in anti-Semitism in the U.S. and perhaps elsewhere in the world as well. How would you, from your perspective, suggest dealing with this current issue?
Yeah, it's painful. It's difficult. Before I say anything, I love America. I love America and my dad loved America because America is a land of opportunity, and it's a place where you give it your best, you pray to God, and you can make things happen. And this is not just America; it's everywhere in the world. Maybe you heard of this before, but many times, if you look at Hitler, if you look at his books and Mein Kampf, the reason why he despised the Jews is because he writes very clearly because of their self-denying commandments. There's a lady, a historian, her name is Lucy Davidovich, and she's a Holocaust historian, and she proves that there were limited trains towards the end of the war, and Hitler would rather send Jews to the concentration camps, than to send provisions and much needed supplies to his troops. The hatred of the Jews, this was beyond any rational reason. It was something deeply implanted within him, and it was irrational. And I believe that although it's very difficult to understand his evil ways, but I believe that, like I'm sure you've heard, when you have a coal mine, they take canaries, and the canaries die when there's a lack of oxygen before the human beings, and then the miners know it's time to get out. I believe that people who espouse hatred, whatever their background is, those people, it's not just a hatred towards the Jewish people, it's a hatred towards morality. So where people were condemning Jews, it's a barometer, it's a litmus test that, hey, you know what, I hate to say it, free society is next. And you can prove this. It's not just, hey, we hate the Jews, we hate their denying commandments. I want to do what I want to do. And I don't need that Jew telling me I can't do this and I can't do that. And therefore, real haters despise morality. And thank God we live in America, and America, from all the countries in the world, it's the only country which has on its dollar bill, "In God we trust." And America is proud. America tells the world that this country is based on something divine. And I think the more we teach morality and more we teach that we have to get along, that we, it says in the Talmud, the reason why Adam and Eve, there was only one man and one woman. All other parts of creation are made in sets and groups. And Adam and Eve was one man and one woman. Why? So there are many answers. One of the answers in the Talmud is because no one should say that their grandfather or their grandmother was greater than someone else's grandfather or grandmother, because we all come from the same grandfather and the same grandmother, Adam and Eve. So I believe it's very, very important for us to teach that. And yeah, we could be short-sighted and we could think that someone else is a threat and we could try and do away with them. But really, in reality, we all got to learn to get along, and we all got to learn to respect each other. And like we said, not just building bridges, but crossing over them. And I'm trying, we're trying, to make a difference. And I'm not saying it's easy, the world is hard, The world seems very unfair, but that's the beauty of it. We're greater than angels, because despite our limitations, despite the darkness, we're gonna bring morality. And listen, the onus is on me to try for me to be my best, not to put the yoke on someone else, but for me to try my best to make a difference. And to be an example, So, but I feel very, very blessed to live in America. I like Australia also, but I feel very blessed to live in America. I hope that was helpful. Are there any other questions?
Any further questions from our audience? Okay. Well, thank you so much, Rabbi Kaltmann, for being with us tonight and sharing your wisdom with us. We very much appreciate it, and a lot to think about. And we wish you well. And
Thank you.
I wish everyone in the audience well, and keep us in mind for July 27th. With Dr. Semya Topol. Good night, everybody.
Good
Good night.
night. Thank you,
Good night.
Rabbi.
Thank you.
for having
Thank you,
Good night.
Rabbi. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure, my honor. Thank you.